This is a really cool story, a mystery under the sea. Scientists discovering not one, not two, but three sunken ships loaded with treasures of historic interest right off the coast of Texas. These wrecks are believed to be some 200 years old, dating back to when Texas was fighting for its independence from Mexico. Joining me now on the phone is Jim Delgado. He's the director of NOAA's Maritime Heritage Program. Jim, welcome. Good to have you here. What'd you find?
Thank you. The three shipwrecks date to the first part of the 19th century, an age in which Texas is struggling for independence, as is Mexico. The United States is purchasing Louisiana, and the world as we know it is taking shape.
Amazing. We're looking at an anchor. And some of what was on these ships, and we also have pictures, images from the battle for Texas's independence, just to kind of remind everybody what era we're talking about here. But what you found on the ships, it talks a little bit about the history of privateers in the area and cargo and the way the military was fighting. Whose ships were they? And that's Jean Lafitte, the famous pirate that may have been involved in some of this as well.
Well, he's certainly a candidate as the owner of perhaps these ships, as are many other privateers. The ships, one was armed, two others appeared to be carrying cargo. Perhaps they were prizes, perhaps they were being protected. We don't know, but for us, the real prize here is the history that's tied up in these ships, how they reflect the people that were on board. And for each of us, as we looked at those, as we carefully raised them for analysis and then to go into a museum, we were struck by the fact that we were the first hands to touch them for close to 200 years, if not earlier, and that this was a real connection to real people, all of whom we feel died in these wrecks.
What did you learn about them?
We learned that the ships were caught in the same storm, that they sank quickly and violently, that they had trade goods in them that came from all over the world, but particularly we could see that one of the ships at least had called in Yucatan, Mexico, because there were very distinctive jars that came from only one town, Cizal in Yucatan.
Fascinating. And what role do you, what does it tell you in terms of shedding light on what was happening in Texas and the fight for independence? And, I know you're not really sure from what I read whether or not the larger ship was basically had these other two ships in custody, essentially.
Well, the work has really just begun with the discovery. We raised about 60 artifacts that will now be studied carefully, and I think more answers will be forthcoming. But what we have seen is a couple things. One, that the ocean has always been an important part of our country's history as well as the world's, and that down there, these sites like this one found are time capsules and museums. And they can tell us so much because there's so many things in them that are so nicely preserved.
I want to ask you, because I saw there was a guest on the other morning on Fox and Friends who was finding, huge blocks of silver in shipwrecks. How do you balance the need for preserving history down there, because we've got all this great technology now to go down there and find things that people thought were lost forever, with treasure hunters?
Well, very few wrecks have treasure, and the costs of going and finding and recovering a wreck are very, very high. In fact, this project was only made possible thanks to generous private donations from history-minded folks here in Texas. The government's role was just to loan some scientists. We like that kind of cost-effective saving of the tax dollar. But what was key in this project as well was that there is no treasure here. In fact, as I said, very few ships even have treasure. And in the long run, it costs more to get most of them. You don't find very many ships packed with silver or gold.
It's fascinating, and I love that story about finding that pottery from only one town where it was made, and it just is going to give you such an indication of the lives of these people. Thank you so much, Jim. Really cool stuff. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.